Peace, family. We should be live right now. All right, we should be live right now. What is going on to everybody in the chat as we continue this thing here on Black Magic 363? What a powerful last 3 days. I don't know if all of y'all who's in the chat have been a part of what's going on the last 3 days. We had Billy Carson Wednesday, we had Dr. B Serious Thursday, and we're closing out the week with Vicky Dillard, and all of these individuals is going to be at Stone Mountain festivities next weekend in Stone Mountain, Georgia. So yeah, we're just prepping for that. You know, we're always prepping big things coming. And I guess with that being said, I want to welcome back to the platform once again. Y'all know this sister is fire, Vicky Dillard.
Thank you so much for having me, Brother Rich. It is always a privilege to be with you and your people, your family, my family by extension. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh yeah. How's everything been, Vicky?
I'm well. I'm excited about next week that you were just referring to. So I'm getting things in order here with my business and some other behind the scenes stuff. I got a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that I plan on releasing some of it this summer and throughout the year. But my focus is next week. So that's why I'm wrapping some of that up so I can just focus my meditation on next week. So I am so excited and honored.
Indeed. We got a good show tonight, Vicky. You know, I thought about you with this topic, and I said that if there's anybody I would want to talk to about this topic, it would be you. Now, I named the show Mothership Transmissions. I was going to name it Divine Transmissions because I seen you had put that somewhere in one of your Instagram posts, but something told me to put Mothership in there. Since we talking to the Divine Feminine tonight, I said let me put Mothership in there and get some of these Divine Feminine transmissions. Ooh. And you know, one of the things I like, just to start out the show, I like about talking to Vicky, either talking to Vicky Dillard or listening to her, or you know, just seeing some of her stuff online, is that sometime when I talk to people, like I've been into this information since I was like I got into it heavy when I was about 19 years old. So I came across so much information. I done interviewed so many people. I done asked thousands of questions.
Yes.
And not a lot of times, but sometimes when people will answer a question or I hear them talking, I can almost predict what they're going to say next because I know what book they got it from, or I know what person they got it from. And not to say that it's bad information, but it's information that I'm pretty much I'm familiar with to a certain extent, and we all share the same information, so that's understandable. But the difference with you is that sometimes you say things, a lot of times you say things that just completely comes from your spirit. It just completely comes from a source that doesn't come from a book. It doesn't come from somebody else. It just comes from the soul of Vicky Dillard, your spirit guide, your ancestors, your higher self, whatever term that is. It comes from somewhere else. And when I hear you speak sometime, I just be like, wow, that's some profound shit. You did it the last show when you was on the show with the rest of the queens, Mama T, Sister Myra.
Oh yes.
You was going off. You was just going off the whole show. And some of the things you were saying, I was just like, damn, that was powerful. And that doesn't come from a particular source. That comes from Vicky Dillard. And what I noticed is that first question, some of the like white people that I've studied, let's say Esther Hicks.
Okay,
let's say Esther Hicks got Abraham. Let's say Jane Roberts had Seth. Let's say Daryl Anka has Bashar. He channels Bashar. You ever heard of him, the dude Bashar?
I don't think so. If I did in passing, but I'm not too familiar with them, unfortunately. I don't know.
So all these, when we talk about transmissions and we talk about channeling, all of these individuals have channels, has a specific entity that continuously comes to them and gives them information. So I want to know with Vicky, since you're tapped into the spirit world the way you are, Is there a specific entity? Does this entity have a name that keeps coming to you and gives you information like some of these other individuals that I just named?
Not one particular name.
Or
I would say a council.
okay, right.
And then not only the council, but over time, after being rejected from numerous spiritual people and groups, Brother Rich, I think I shared this a little bit one time before on your platform, where I was doing whatever it takes to be a part of certain spiritual groups, and every single time I was rejected. It was something that really, I know now, was supernaturally guided so that I would not be connected in a certain way with those groups, no matter what I was willing to do to participate. I was just trying to tap into this spiritual urge and need in me to connect and to know more about myself. And I was willing to sit at the feet of anybody that showed me how to do that and pay any price, frankly. And when I continued to be rejected, before my mother moved to Colorado 20-something years ago with me, for those that don't know, I was born and raised in Mississippi, but I was the first in my family to move to the Wild Wild West, as I call it. I was so devastated and in tears. And this was a pattern for me, you see, of rejection, specifically from certain groups. And so, of course, at the time, I was 20-some years of age, in my early 20s. I'm 46 now. So with that being said, before she moved here, my mother said, very sweetly, very kindly, her personality is nothing like mine, but she said, maybe God wants to teach you himself. That statement forced me into a reliance of my own, a sovereignty. And as I began to engage in certain spiritual rituals and things began to happen, I began to understand, Brother Rich, I no longer desired, I'm going to use this for example, right, to see an angel. I was engaging in such rituals that they came to see me, and they filled my room with legal pads taking notes from what I said. That's where the revelation of the gavel came almost 20 years ago during my spiritual prayer time. They were letting me know that I was commanding court in the spirit and all rise, because the Honorable Vicki Dillard was presiding. But not only that, I had trance where I was actually wide awake, but my body was frozen and I ascended. And then there were situations where they came down and descended because I was holding court on earth. Kind of like air control and ground control. I've used that analogy before. You know, you can't fly a plane, right, without an air controller. So it doesn't matter how high you want to be up in the air. There is a connection to the ground. Do you understand? That's important. And there's a such thing as a tower, isn't it? When we deal with airplanes, right? And so your altar, your spiritual time is your sort of tower to pull in what's happening over your head, but we work together. You understand? So when I understood that power, Brother Rich, and when I understood that every time I was doing something supernaturally, something naturally would take place, I began to understand there was an ancient text that says that even some of the angels observe us. So what are they looking at? What's in me? And could I have been fooled to believe that everything that I can't see is outranking me or more powerful than me? And is it possible that I can align myself with other energies and forces? Just like there's different county jurisdictions, right? State, you have federal, and you have international, right? So it is in the spirit realm. There's a counter to that. So I don't say I have one entity. As I begin to tap in to the spirit realm, looking outside of myself, I understood that there were different sources, just like we call it in the scripture. There's the Lord of hosts, there are angels. Even if we're dealing with the biblical and the scriptural text, even he doesn't work sovereignly, really by him, quote unquote, himself, the way we've been trained. There's a council, there's a team. You understand? There's an assembly. You understand? There's a court. There's an unseen government that's made up of different entities and different forces. And so I would say I work with them. But if I got to be honest, I work with myself. My goddess, my divine self instructs a lot and summons some of these councils, some of these alliances, some of these relationships. And also based on what I decree It's established, and my team here and in the unseen works with me on that, and vice versa. I know that might have been complex, but it kind of is that way.
Do you mind sharing? I mean, who rejected you? Who you said you kept getting rejected?
Well, we be all day about the issue. We talk about that, but I don't want to call out names in modern times. But I will give an example.
Yeah.
I was a part of an Orthodox sect at one time. And for those that don't know, I've discussed this briefly before, where what we know as a Catholic church actually broke off of the Orthodox church. You see, they have many similarities in terms of the sacraments, what we call the sacraments, yes. And this notion of what they call apostolic succession, those that say they can trace power directly from Paul, the first said apostle and bishop, which of course that's technically not true, but we're just going to deal with what's taught in most dogma in Christendom. Mm-hmm. So that sect is what we know as the Eastern Church versus the Western Church, which is considered to be the Catholic Church. The major difference between the two, there are many differences, but the major differences between the two is that the Orthodox Church, from which the Catholic Church broke off, the Orthodox Church believes in a council of bishops, you see, whereas the Catholic Church really believes in a papacy, a pope, a single source, you understand? So I was connected to the Eastern Orthodox, one of the Eastern Orthodox sects of the church, and I was actually in line for the priesthood. And the bishop's wife, who had a high-level role, obviously, and really was a parish, but I'm calling it a church. That particular parish, when he proposed, unbeknownst to me at the time, you understand, he felt that he was divinely guided to say this. He wanted to put me as leadership, in a high-level leadership position. And she stood up in the leadership meeting and said over her dead body.
Wow. Wow.
I laugh because the energy I roll with, it makes people crazy. Like, it's outrageous what they do. It really is. It's so crazy. Like, they can't even keep it in. So she said, over her dead body. And so all of the deacons, Brother Rich, and all the priests, and they was like, what? Oh, did she say it out loud? Did she say it loud? All of us heard that in the leadership meeting with your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ Spirit. So she said over her dead body. And so there were other attempts apparently behind the scenes that took place, but this just boiled over. So I'll just use that. I'll use that as just one example. And there are also some just natural things, other groups, other spiritual systems that I had intended to be either initiated in or with, connected with. And there was just something that just did not work out at a certain timing. There were certain relationships that was done. And if I'm going to be honest with you, there was certain magic that was done. Spiritual power that was done to prevent, frustrate, and foil me connecting with certain groups and individuals because I know I ain't nothing to be played with. And I know that wherever I'm at, baby, if people are in spiritual order with me, your life is going to do nothing but level up, and we're going to affect this world and the worlds to come. And so that has been an ongoing theme that took place with me in my life. So that's just one example.
Okay, so one of the things you talked about, and I'm glad you said, you called it a council with Esther and Abraham. She said it's a collective of entities, but they go by the name Abraham, but it's really a collective. You talk about, tapping into yourself. What do you would you recommend, there's so much talk in the spirit, especially in the Black spiritual community, about building an altar for your ancestors. Would you ever recommend building an altar for your higher self to communicate with your higher self?
Ooh, Brother Rich, you play too much. No, I say this all the time because it's really, every time I think I'm on here, I say this because I really, really mean this because you astound me with your questions. Because a lot of times they're so precise and prophetic and spiritual. Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Yes. And yes. Mm-hmm. The altar. And I use this analogy, and I need us to remember this because this is how Spirit showed me. Mm-hmm. Just like you cannot tap into the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Without a modem, without this black thing. Nobody thinks it's strange that you have to have this box to access the internet, to access intelligence, to access being online, right? This type of power, yes? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same with any sort of spiritual energy that we seek to channel. And just like any internet or cable or whatever, we call it a channel, yes, but there are different channels, right? That we're looking to tune into, and we have to tune into a particular channel. So if I'm wanting to tune into myself, and I'm the essence of the divine, there's a part of me, obviously, that's divinity. I need that thing to grow. And the way you grow in power, the thing has to be elevated. And so one of the reasons why even the patriarchal forces that took over ancient Black spiritual systems in particular called everything we did idolatry, yes, paganism, demonic and devilish. We had a lot of these different idols, but we understood that there was an energy attachment to it. The same with the pyramids, the same with other similar things that we knew how to attach, watch this, and trap power. We like to talk a lot about electromagnetism, right? We like to talk a lot about magnetism. But in electromagnetism and in the magnetism, there's a net. You hear the word net there, yes? There has to be something to trap force, power, and energy. It can't just be the potential out there somewhere. I know spirit and energy is out there somewhere. It's everywhere around us. But I need to utilize and materialize that in my own life, right? And I need to be able to pull that in, just like if I want to get a fish, I need a fishing net. I need something to pull that thing in. So that's what your altar does. It directs, like a conductor, an energy and a power. And when you give it attention through your meditation, through your affirmations, through your decrees, through your silence, you're actually pulling in energy, and it resides there with you. And then it intensifies, you see? That's what your altar does. So when you do that for your, as you mentioned, higher self, that's going to grow and make larger who you really are, the reality of who you are. So that's the whole purpose of that. It's the thing that's elevated. So yes, to answer your question, I know I took a minute to get there, but in a similar way, yes, because you're divine. So we can't think that to be blasphemous to do such a thing. Yes. So indeed, it's very important that we have those things.
Yeah, you know, with the talk, and that's very deep what you said, and you know, with the concept of the web and the internet web, and we've seen pictures, like they have pictures of space and where they think. Let me see if I could put it. What this is interesting. Where is this at? Where they think, you know, there's no such thing as empty space. So our ancestors knew that. They didn't know that till the technology finally caught up with some of the things our ancestors said, and they find out that empty space is filled with this. And it's like they call it like a cosmic web. So it's like the idea of the web and the understanding of the web, and it just makes me think just how sacred spiders might be. Spiders building webs, you know what I'm saying?
I got chills on my arms.
But yeah, talk to me. I mean, well, let's have that conversation. I mean,
the reason I say that is because some of the goddesses are known with that appellation of a spider. And in fact, are part of the story of Inanna, and her descending into the underworld for 3 days and 3 nights, where y'all's Lord and Savior Jesus Christ stole that story, going into the underground for 3 days and 3 nights. The goddess that they stole that from, a spider was actually involved in being summoned for the resurrection to actually assist and to infiltrate where she was when she went into the underworld, you see. That's a long story, but it had to do with also weaving, and how the divine feminine has connection to the weaving that moved into fabrics, that moved into a lot in terms of even some of the fabrics and the clothing. All of that's actually quite profound. It's not just about your dress. It's not just about your outfit. All of that had very, very, very deep esoteric connections to it. And so that's one of the things that I love about when we study about the spider. And of course, we know that a lot of times the web with the spider, what it's made up of, right? When they're able to trap the insects don't know. It's so almost invisible and subtle, right? They don't even realize that they're moving into a trap, right? There has a lot of deep spiritual connections to that. And so there's a lot to that if you begin to study the spider, that's one of the actual organisms that was used to refer to the divine feminine. So when you say spider, I'm like, Brother Rich, play too much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, this is I like we in the flow right now.
Indeed.
I like where this is going.
Can I
What?
say something really quick before you?
Please do.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that you were going to name this. What did you call it? Mothership?
Mothership transmissions.
Mothership transmissions. I won't go deep. I'm just going to say 3 words.
Yeah.
Mothership, motherland, mother tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Very profound.
Mm-hmm.
That these things are named mothership, motherland, and mother tongue. And they all are interconnected spiritually. And they're all on deal with the range of the unseen and the seen. Now, I just wanted to say this one thing about the word mother. I posted this several times before, but I posted it most recently. The word mother is actually a part of the etymological root where we get the word matter and material. This is important for us to understand. And so this is even beyond gender, you understand? So when you're dealing with the mother, you're dealing with the matter and the material makers, you understand? So when you start showing images and photos like you just showed there about how empty space is not really empty space, and then also there's some connections to sound. So when you deal with this whole notion of somatics, and some of your guests are way more up on this stuff than I am to be speaking on this, I just know that when I speak, when I sing, when I declare, when I decree, things happen based on that. So that's the part that I connect with the sound. But we also know that when there are certain somatics, certain sounds, they said that when they use certain instruments, they see certain what? Images, right? Designs. So really the way you see is the way you hear. You see?
Yeah.
So you got to hear something first in order to see something. And so, which is why they also tell you that faith comes by hearing and hearing and hearing, but also that's also connected to the mother tongue. How things got their beginning. In the beginning was the word. In the beginning was this notion of sound. But I'm going to leave that as that. But I want y'all to have that in the back of your mind as we're moving forward, talking about different topics about this notion of mother and connected to the word material. Just have that in the back of your mind, material and matter, among other things.
You know what's interesting, man? I like I said, I love talking with you. You know, the etymology of matter and it going back to mother. And if you talked about you decreeing.
Yes.
And not asking, but actually decreeing what you wanted to bringing the mother, the matter into existence by decreeing. What's interesting is women in this realm like a man or like somebody that speak with confidence, just like the divine mother. You got to speak to her with confidence. Vicky, you got to decree. Vicky, you better be confident when you go. Just like your lady. If I go to my girl and I don't sound confident, she be like, "Oh, nigga, you better come back. You better come back later."
Come on now. She's a profound woman. She's a profound woman. That means everything to us because that's a spiritual energy. You understand? Yeah. The confidence of a thing, speaking a particular way, is not just about the stuff that you say, it's what we feel. Now, don't forget the divine feminine, we embody, right? So that's why we're emotional. That's the reason why we feel. It has to be in order for us to bring things into existence. So it ain't even just what you saying, it's what we feeling. Like, oh, bro, that don't sound, no, all the words that you saying. So she's quite profound. Your lady, when you say she don't, that means everything. That means everything to us. It's spiritual. Yes.
So brothers, keep that in mind when you want to materialize something. Approach the divine substance, you want to call it mother, some people call it big mama, the quantum field. Approach that with the same confidence you approach a woman, brothers.
Yes.
Don't go into prayer weak-minded and sound and fumbling your words.
Powerful.
It like you're scared.
Powerful.
You know so yeah,
that's powerful, Brother Rich. That's powerful.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, we talking about the divine feminine. I absolutely love the last show I did with you and Sister Myra and Mama T.
Yes.
This is something that is a little confusing to me. So in terms of the divine feminine, I hear a lot of women say it's, it's the woman's turn to lead. Patriarchy has led for too long. Women should lead the household. Now, from what I see and from what I understand, there's already a lot of women leading the household because they're the only ones in the household.
Right.
From what I see, there's something called, like I heard you use this term, soft girl era, where in order for a woman to really relax and tap into a divine feminine, the man has to take that heavy weight of leading the household, because that shit wears on you. When you're the head of a household and you got to make hard decision after hard decision after hard decision after hard decision. In my mind, I'm like, what woman want to do this shit if she got a good man? Why would she want? I'm not saying she can't do it or she's incapable, but why would she want to take upon all that responsibility if she has a man? Shouldn't she want to be more in a relaxed state, where she could tap into these energies that she isn't able to when she's on that 9 to 5 or she's on a daily grind? Because being on a daily grind, that's a lot of shit on us in society. So how can a woman be a leader in the divine feminine and also be living her soft girl era at the same time?
That's very interesting. To the degree that I resonate with this notion of soft girl era, soft girl era for me looks like impacting everything around me.
Okay.
Soft girl era, it simply means that I have a men's coaching course that Spirit downloaded for me. I'm going to be doing a higher end 60-day intensive just for men. I'm going to be doing my ISIS mystery schools for my sisters as well. And I still do to this day my monthly mastermind school, where I have students every month that I do lectures for, and we get all kinds of goodies and stuff like that. So these are additional academies that are short-term schools that I'm doing on top of the monthly school that I do, right? And the imagery that Spirit gave me to do for my masculines out there, it's going to be called Treasures of Darkness. That's going to be the 60-day academy that I'm going to be doing. And the two main things is going to be about providing and protecting. So the image that Spirit gave me to use for the 60-day course is a money armed truck. So when you see a money armed truck, two things come to mind typically, Brother Rich. For me, tell me what comes to mind, if you don't mind playing this game with me. What comes to mind when you see an armed truck?
Oh, security.
And what else?
Wealth comes to mind.
You just said two things right there.
Yeah.
Now, no responsible person would perceive the value of something and not automatically what?
Protect it.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So the armed truck is what I want our masculines to have in their mind, that there are two major things. Of course, it's much more than that. I'm talking about the two prominent things. Now, when you have a fence in your home for your toddler, the fence is a type of boundary, a type of restriction, so that they're able to have freedom, so that they're able to play. Yes, they need an environment that's controlled so that they can do their magic. It's the same for the divine feminine. My soft girl era is not Vicky talking low all the time. We perceive the earth as feminine, yes? But the earth, beloved, it ain't just summertime like today is. Do you know today is the summer solstice, Brother Rich?
Yes.
You think the last time you played too much. I don't know how you keep having me on for full moon stuff.
I didn't even know.
He played too much. This is so deep and profound. But watch this. The earth, as beautiful as it is, yes, it's flowing waters, it's sweetness, it's sunshine, it's beauty, it's grace, it's abundance. But it's tsunamis on this planet. It's earthquakes, yes? It's tornadoes, it's hurricanes. So being a divine feminine allows me to be the full range of who I am, because all of those things are necessary. When the volcano erupts, the eruption of the volcano is necessary. Guess what it does? It cleanses the environment. It releases a certain type of ash and other things that purifies the environment. When a volcano takes place, it affects the other side of the world. When a volcano erupts, Brother Rich, sometimes it pulls minerals that were buried underground to the surface.
Talk to him.
The volcano, with its explosion, with its lava, as scary as it is, it's necessary. And so are all ranges of the divine feminine. You understand? So we don't want to put us in a box, because we reflect and represent the earth and all things that are meant to be. We represent the full process of the resurrection, of the rebirthing. You understand? So all of those different phases are necessary. You want all of that. It's when we're out of balance and we're not in a position to be all of those things. You don't want me not to be angry ever, and never want me to release that. You understand? You never want that sort of thing, because all of those different types of moods are important. They're necessary for the sustaining and for the turning of life actually itself. So in terms of the main focus for the woman, is not necessarily about whether or not we should quote unquote be leading. It's about brothers focus on taking care of those two things. You focus on, first and foremost, providing and protecting, and allow her to evolve under you doing those two things. You don't even need to use such terms as who's going to lead. You understand? We don't even need to get off into, because that's a very divisive thing now. And it's really not an argument that a person can win with me. I'm just trying to help the mortals by not getting off. I'm trying to help the mortals by not even trying to get into some of the more controversial things like that. I'm saying let your focus be those two things, providing and protecting. And you do those things and allow the woman within those two things to flourish and to be the fullness of the divine feminine she's been called to be. Because in that, you providing and protecting, this notion of leading, when you have the counsel of a woman that's divinely provided for and protected, there's going to be a level of counsel that she's going to give you that you can't get anywhere else, baby. That's going to bring great profit to you. There's an energetic flow that she's going to bring to your home, a frequency that will cause you to operate in favor. You're going to attract opportunities, circumstances, and situations, because we are a portal. And there are certain things that's attracted to the womb man, you understand? And you benefit from it because you're within proximity. You're within that electromagnetic field of a woman that's divinely whole, you see? So this is the focus. So let's not even get into those terms, I don't think, in terms of who needs to be leading and who's doing this and that kind of stuff. Let's focus on what function, you see. Let's focus on the function, and then let her evolve into what she's been called to be, and watch your life become heaven. Watch the sweetness. Watch the results. I'm going to use this one term and I'm going to stop here. I said this before, I think a few years ago. I don't remember what this was, 2-3 years ago. I don't know. I think I was on with the Pillars, and I talked about this with them, and I talked about this in some other places before. Do you know that the word husband is an agrarian word? It's a word that's associated with the earth, with the ground, with agriculture. Husbandry, when you look that up, that has to do with the garden, Brother Rich. Now, I want my woman fine, they say. Why she overweight like that? Why she look like that? Well, her attitude, I mean, can you smell good? Can you look good? I mean, what you bring? Watch this. Don't ask me, fool, what I'm bringing to the table. Husband, which has this connection to the ground, to the earth, to the garden, was the one that was responsible for taking care of the garden. Watch this. What happens, Brother Rich, when you tend to your garden? What happens if you, the husband, which that's where that word comes from, the notion of the one that cares for the ground, the earth, the farm, let's say the farm or the garden. You know that when you make sure that there are no weeds in the garden? Do you know when you put up a fence around the garden to protect it from enemies Do you know that when you make sure the garden is watered, Brother Rich, when you make sure that it has sunshine, when you make sure it has what it needs, what will the garden do, Brother Rich?
Produce fruit.
Wait, you taking me too fast. No, did I misunderstand you?
Nah.
Like, what would it do?
Produce fruit.
Is it beautiful, Brother Rich?
Oh yeah.
Does it smell good, Brother Rich?
Oh yeah.
You just want to be in the garden all the time because it's pretty and smell good and stuff. Do the gardens and farms, does it sustain life? Does it produce fruit? Can you eat from it?
Yeah, indeed.
Come on now. So your job, shut up all that talking. You just need to tend to your garden. You need to make sure the weeds aren't in it, baby. You need to make sure it's nurtured. You need to remove anything that's in the way of it doing what it knows how to do. Watch this. Automatically. If there's nothing there that's preventing its growth, you see? That's your focus. Husband. That's where we get the word from. Look it up and look at the etymology of it. That's where it comes from. So you just tend to your garden. The beauty will be there. The sustaining will be there. The resources is going to be there. Watch this. The environment where you're attracted. Yes? Come on now. And it will do it automatically because you're caring for your garden. You don't need to go under earth to do nothing. Mind your business. Quit trying to find out all the feminine secrets. You understand? You do the outside stuff. You make sure the weeds are gone. Make sure it's cleared out. You do that. You make sure I have my sunshine, my water. You take good care. And baby, I got the rest.
What this divine counsel that you are in communication with, in which you get some of these transmissions that you speak of on the internet, what are they telling you? Because I heard you mention the Sibyls in relation to what's going on with the war in Iran and what's going on with Israel and Trump and them. What is the divine counsel telling you about what's really happening behind the scenes?
This is so good. Brother Rich, when Bashar al-Assad fell last year of Syria, you remember that? Hearing about him in the news. I did a webinar on it. And I know folks was like, who in the world this girl from Mississippi thinks she is talking about these? Man, if you don't sit down. Let me tell you something. That doesn't even seem like it matches someone like me to declare some of the stuff that I do. When I'm on the African Diaspora News Channel, I go live there a few times a week, but I also, in addition, give international commentary. I was talking about this little country known as Eritrea, that's situated right there next to Somalia, Somaliland, and Ethiopia. Really, a lot of them are some of the same people, but their story is quite fascinating. But they're right there together. When I started talking about South Africa, been talking about Russia and Ukraine for some time. Now, when the download came to me about Russia and Ukraine, that was almost 20 years ago. And it didn't make any sense, Brother Rich. But because my spiritual encounters and prayer time wasn't just about me and my four and no more, I was doing the business of things that affected the planet, Brother Rich. And so as I began to meditate and begin to pray, I was getting downloads that had to do with nations and countries. That don't even make no sense. You understand? Right. I started getting downloads that had to do with that. And then I declared it to certain people. They are my witnesses now of what's happening today. But it didn't make sense. The Spirit had me on that. And I was literally doing certain prayers. So can I say something to you? I hope that don't shake your audience too much. Some of what I was decreeing 20 years ago, I'm actually a part of helping to form what we see happening today. Did you hear what I said? Shaping world events based on some of the things that I was decreeing and declaring, pulling it in, spiritually laboring to form what we see happening today. What we see happening today, our Brother Rich, is nothing more than the resurrection of the original Black Vatican that was situated on planet Earth in multiple shrines and temples and other such sacred spaces and places that were responsible for moving the world into untold numbers of golden ages. How many of you all remember when Trump got in office? Do you remember him using that phrase? Yep. You remember him using that phrase? Yes. Our ancient civil mothers are actually the ones that were responsible for inducing these golden ages, which is to say, when society and civilization reached its height in astronomy, astrology, the sciences, mathematics, social sophistication, economics, spirituality, it was due to their influence and guidance of it. What we're seeing, the turning, the wars, the disruption, the economics, the trade wars, BRICS, what's happening with foundational Black Americans and reparations, all of these different things have everything to do with the shaking and the changing of the goddesses and the changing of the gods, the changing of the guards. This is exactly what's happening. Now, specifically, I'm assuming you want me to talk, and you tell me whether or not you want me to. The most recent thing that's been dominating headlines in terms of geopolitically is Iran. Is that what you're talking about in particular?
Yeah, you can talk. Yeah.
Now, I posted this a few days ago. First of all, ancient Iran is known as what? Persia. For my family. I'm sure many of you know this, but I had to remind us of this. And this is what I posted on Instagram, and I'm actually pulling it up now. I'm gonna try not to be too ghetto with it. Look, what I'm used to doing my broadcast on my channel. Look, I put my phone right up to the screen, brother. Y'all don't have my little fancy slides.
No, it's all
like
good.
You have it, brother.
It's all good.
I posted. This is one of the things that I posted on my Instagram at Vicky X Dillard. I posted this. Now, this is a headline from a newspaper that says Iran warns of, quote, irreparable consequences as Trump weighs the U.S. role in the conflict. Now, I took people back to an old article because I was doing multiple webinars on this, which is why some of the attendees bear witness and said, Vicky, you brought this up in some of your previous webinars. But when Trump was in office the first time, many folks don't know that Iran, as well as a couple of other, another Middle Eastern country, put a warrant out for his arrest. Now, there were several reasons, not only for him, as this headline says, but also from Pompeo. One of the main reasons is because Trump and Pompeo and others illegally were involved in the deletion, I'm going to use that word online, of Soleimani, which is a top military leader in their country. That wasn't the only one. So this notion that Trump was somehow a peacemaker was a lie in the first place. And so I was reminding folks, just like I was going in on Joe Biden, just like I was going in on Kamala Harris, just like I was going on the Democrats, I was going in on Trump. And I reminded folks before the election and even after that Trump had this warrant out for his arrest. And that also, I believe there was some behind the scenes things that was taking place of one of the reasons he wanted to also be president again is to get some of that cleared up. Some folks don't know that his son, who is Jewish, he put in charge of his former Middle Eastern policy, who's married to Ivanka. Well, when he went over there, to this day, they're still benefiting from deals from the Middle East that his son-in-law, Jared, made while he was over Trump's Middle Eastern policies. Now, in the process of that, right before Trump exited the presidency, that's when they issued the warrant for his arrest. And not only him, the current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, some folks don't know that he also has a warrant out for his arrest. And that there are some Asian countries that have an issue with him. So one of the reasons why I speculated that he did not go to one of the international meetings in South Africa was because of some of the nations that were there. And I felt that he could not guarantee that there wasn't going to be some shenanigans going on. Now, let's not forget that as we speak, who else has a warrant out for their arrest? Netanyahu, yes? Netanyahu has a warrant out for his arrest. Now, they slow walk finally issuing that arrest. But who was one of the main backers that pushed for that arrest? And they should have. The former foreign minister of South Africa, a Black woman by the name of Dr. Naledi Pandor. She is no longer, during the past election for South Africa, the current foreign minister. They got rid of her because she was the major force that forced them into The Hague. They have a lawsuit with them now there at the ICJ. And separately from the ICJ is the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court. She was the one that was one of the leading voices behind pressing them to actually put out a warrant for Netanyahu and others. And they finally did. she's no longer the foreign minister. This is the first time in South Africa's history where their main party did not get over 50%. So she's no longer the foreign minister, even though President Ramaphosa is still in place. Why am I bringing these different moving parts up? I'm moving this up because different nations that are not a part of the global north versus the global south is really should be called the global majority. Those are typically the darker peoples of the earth, except for really Russia mainly. Watch this. They're asserting their authority and their influence around the world, dear brother. And many of the places that are affected with the greatest controversies have everything to do with regions that our ancient mothers controlled. And so every place to this day, every major religion that's responsible, that's fighting, whether it's the Muslims and their holy place that they're fighting for, whether it's the temple, which I talked about before, these sacred places all have to do with infractions that was done to our ancient mothers, the Sibyls. So the thing that we find when I brought up, and I'm going to say this part quickly, when I brought up Syria, Bashar al-Assad, and they were rejoicing in the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, we talked about how he was taking out his people, right? We talked about all the horrible things we claimed he was doing. That wasn't the case at all. One of the things that most people don't understand is that we, the United States, sent emissaries over to him years ago and told him that we would put away all sanctions. We would let bygones be bygones if he did this one thing, Brother Rich. If he would enter into an oil agreement with us and leave Iran out of it. Because it's a strategic, Syria is a strategic, geographically strategic to pumping a pipeline that the West wanted to take place. This was something they had plotted years ago. Bashar al-Assad was willing to do it, but he wasn't willing to throw Iran under the bus. They had to be a part of it, you see? Watch this. Have you heard about the Houthis, Brother Rich? That little small country that they call the Houthis, yes. Which they really Ansar Allah, and they're causing all kind of hell and havoc in that water route, and they're messing with the shipping routes, and they're disrupting the global trade. How could a small country that didn't even have a formal navy do such a thing? And we laughed at them. They made us think they were just little silly pirates. That Yemeni area, that ancient Arabic area, including Syria, and including that place that they call Israel, that area was controlled and under the influence of our ancient mothers. Y'all ain't hearing me. Can I say something to you really quickly?
Indeed.
Really quickly?
Keep going.
Right now, and I talk about some of these different things in my special webinars, and I deal with a lot of this in my school. The writer who I referred to before, Mama Zogbe, you can look up and find her books later. You can join my school and get more information. I also use other sources in addition to her book, and the ones I'm always quoting, called The Sibyls, the First Prophetesses of Mammy Wata, and also some of her other books. This is another book that has nothing to do with her. This is about the great Black mama. There are other sources that I'm going to be going back and forth on. But anyway, connect with me at my website, Vicky Planet, and you can find out more there. I'm giving you this as a reference. Under some of our ancient mothers, I want you to listen to this. It says here, this section, and I posted about this before as well. Roman bishops, listen to who's involved, okay? Roman bishops and Judaic Levites compete for Black matriarchal lucrative trade empires. Y'all need to listen to me. Many of these Black matriarchs, it says, were violently persuaded to choose between the brutal Roman Christian inquisitors, she puts Christians in parentheses, right, operating from orders issued by the bishops and imposing their corrupted Christian doctrine upon them, or give way to the military excursions by an even more violent Black Levitical Jews that were known as the Affrim, Affrim. Look them up. Whom had garnered less attention in history as spreading their brand of Judaism throughout Arabia, Central and East Africa via the sword. Their brutality being just as lethal as the bishops of whom they were competing. Revisionists have glamored and justified their mayhem, claiming them to be in service of either Christ or the Black Jews to their Jehovah. However, the reality was their vicious battle over the lucrative trade and strategic routes of these black matriarchs in the Sudan, Arabia, and Yemen was their main objective. And the exclusive rule of a male god to justify and assure their power over the matriarchs. The matriarchal kingdoms, having deteriorated over time, further weakened by the continual internal revolts against the old female-dominated orders, were fair game for these violent, marauding, fearlessly patriarchal tribes invading them from all directions. Now, before that, it talks about how one such empire, this section is called matriarchal Nabateans, or Nubians in parentheses. Y'all have heard of them before, right? They were the prosperous international traders. It talks about how under Mami or Mammy, however you want to pronounce that, the Nabateans or Nubians became prosperous traders and market women. They dominated, Brother Rich, the important trade routes where they built desert empire states, which reigned at least 15 generations. In Sudan, the major city-states included the kingdoms of Nubia, Napata, Darfur. How many of y'all heard of Darfur? Wadi, Bornu, Kanim. I know I'm mispronouncing some of this. In the what's known as the Senegambia, it says here, they include the Hosea states, and she lists a number of them: the Karafa, the Nupi, the Sol, the Borga, the Gurma, the Mosi, the Fulani folks, the Sangha, even under their different names, the Mandi state of Jollof. I'm going somewhere with this. Their most recent Nabatean kingdom stretched into ancient Syria with this holy capital Petra, meaning Amphe, stone rock. How many of y'all have heard of that before? That goes into Muslim, Islam. I'm going to leave that alone for now. It's located in Wadi Musa, the desert of Moses, in present-day Jordan. These black queen mothers, are y'all listening? Ruled their kingdoms and were well established in the ancient world for centuries. By the time their own male clansmen and later white Arab shepherds usurped their religious traditions and imposed their version of radical Islam. Now, there are many examples of this that I can give, but specifically in Iran, what's little talked about, Brother Rich, and while we keep talking about all this stuff with Iran, which is Persia, yes, areas and regions in which our ancient mothers were responsible for also controlling, what's little talked about is why Netanyahu, and I'm going to use his name in particular versus the state for a certain reason for these platforms, you understand. I'll mention the name from time to time, but you understand why I'm talking like this, yeah?
Yeah.
So the reason why Netanyahu started this war over there, yes, recently, which they're calling a surprise attack, while we were negotiating with Iran. You know that, right? He did this while we're sitting down at the table and while their defenses were down. Because a lot of the folks they took out were their top military leaders, you understand? And so we shocked Iran because Iran was taken aback. And we rejoiced for 5 minutes. And Iran recalibrated. And now they're unleashing hell and weapons that we didn't even know they had.
Wow.
Now watch this. Why am I bringing this up now? What's little talked about, it's its connection. Not because we say Iran is getting ready to get a nuclear weapon. May I ask you something, Brother Rich? Who in the hell are we to tell them they can't have one? How is it that the United States of America has one, and it's known that Netanyahu and his country has one that's been undeclared? But we're here telling another country what they can't do? We're not the UN. We're not an international bloc where this is all agreed upon. And who are you that get to have these nuclear weapons and rain hell on the rest of the world and tell another country that they can't? You understand? But that's another story. What's little talked about is what Trump said when he took the oath of office this time. Who did he initially come out and attack? BRICS. How many of y'all know what BRICS is? I'm making a point with these trade routes. Are y'all listening? And I'm almost done. What's BRICS? And I've talked about this many times before, which is why I've been doing international commentary for a few years now. BRICS is what? BRICS is that global bloc that's not Western and that's not of the United States. BRICS stands for, let me read this a little bit to you so that you'll understand where this comes from. Brazil, the acronym BRICS, okay? BRICS, Brazil, as I just said, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They've recently increased their membership, Brother Rich, It's been also different other types of memberships, affiliate memberships, without being one of the formal permanent members that you could have an association with BRICS, even though the others' names aren't in it. But one of the most recent members that have now been included is who? Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, Brother Rich, and the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. Saudi Arabia also participates in others. Why am I bringing this up right now? What's little talked about is why they did this with Iran, even though Trump's own security folks, Tulsi Gabbard and them, told him Iran is not trying to get a nuclear weapon to destroy and attack America. Everybody has known this, and Netanyahu been lying for 30 years. Why do they do it now? BRICS, that global bloc that I just mentioned, controls about 40-some% of the world's oil. These non-Western nations. Trump threatened him as soon as he got in office, remember? Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why I believe he was cozying up to Russia more than any of the other ones, because he felt that by cozying up to Russia and making Putin think that he was going to work with him, that he could negotiate with him on the side about pulling away from this alliance that he has with BRICS, which does what? It's coming up with an alternative monetary system. You understand? And willing to put the US dollar to the side. What does this have to do with Iran? I'm going to say this, and I want y'all to look at this article, and I'm going to be done. Keep in mind what I just said about some of our ancient mothers and their trade routes. Keep in mind why I said they had to make sure that Syria fell, right? Last year, right? And Bashar al-Assad, that he had to leave. Yes, we said it was all this other stuff. It had nothing to do with it. It has to do with resources, has to do with oil, and it has to do with trade routes. The same thing it had to do with our ancient mothers in some of the exact regions. Are y'all listening? One last thing. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be done with this particular part. What has been the biggest thing that they've said that they're concerned that Iran might do, aside from its ability to quickly make a nuclear weapon? Have you all heard about the Strait of Hormuz? Have y'all been hearing about that in the news? What has been about that? What is that? The Strait of Hormuz is a strait, Brother Rich, between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. It provides the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, and is one of the world's most strategically important chokeholds. If Iran, Brother Rich, in this war that Netanyahu and them initiated and started recklessly, shuts that down, that would cause a complete heart attack for the global economy. And they've always known that, and it's connected to oil, you understand, because of that strategic route. This is one of the main reasons why they're attacking Iran, because they're a major member of BRICS, and they are the linchpin in the BRICS alliance. And they are building economically against the United States, which means that we want that petrodollar. How many of y'all know about the petrodollar? It's not because America has a whole bunch of gold, right? It's not much backing our money, right? We keep talking about that. This alternative system that has to do with oil and specifically related to the trade routes, one in which that I just mentioned here, which was this Strait of Hormuz, be sure to research that. You will understand that's a secret thing that they're not talking about. And it's one of the areas that, one of the buildings that they end up blowing up when they tell me, oh, it's the nuclear site that they did this. We're going out to their scientists. They're trying to get this. And even though all the folks that are responsible for researching it, looking into it, the international agency that's responsible for checking the scientific progression of these sorts of things in Iran has said they are nowhere near what Netanyahu and them saying the United States, y'all are lying about this. That's the one thing that Trump is concerned about. When he talks about make America great, when he came out threatening BRICS, when he came out talking about the tariffs at first, all of this is targeted at weakening them, because the only thing that keeps the United States in the position it's in is that what? That petrodollar. And the only way we can back that, we can continue to keep our hegemony over the world, is when we continue to control the earth's resources. And if we keep the dollar dominant, that is a strategic point of Iran. It's that route way there, and it's the oil way there. And that's all connected to BRICS, which is, as I mentioned before, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others. And look at some of the other countries like Egypt that I just mentioned, and Iran that's now a former member, and others. This is what this is about. I brought up this with our ancient mothers because some of us don't know that when we research ancient Arabia, The names, some of them are still the same, but some of the names are different. But that exact region, Brother Rich, was controlled by our ancient mothers. And that was one of the major motivations by which you see the connection with the church. You see the connection with the Muslims. You see the connection with other enemies of our ancient mothers, where their religions, as well as the economics and those route ways. And if you think for 1 second, baby, that there's not going to be a consequence for the overthrowing of our ancient mothers, you got another thing coming. Every one of the enemies of our mothers back then are the same one that's in power today. And they're the ones that raided her temples, which is why to this day you see the Muslims and the Jews fighting over that temple area and over the very route ways, economically, and some more things. I just wanted to throw that out there to just make some connections, because I'm trying to get us to see this is why geopolitics is important. We don't really understand how powerful we once were. And because they ruled with justice and with a greater level of might, they weren't trying to take nobody out, you see? There was no genocide and let's take the symbols to the ICC or the ICJ. You understand?
Right.
It's when these other forces came to be, they became so selfish with it, so diabolical and demonic with it. You see, the earth itself. How many of you know there's a scripture that says even creation is moaning and groaning for the manifestations of the sons of God to be revealed into the earth? Even the earth is in labor, helping us to rid out these forces. That's what's happening on the planet.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you brought that up. Where our ancient mothers reign, there happen to be all these magnificent natural resources that is supplying the entire planet at this time. And if we're going to get spiritual with it, I want to ask you a question. I remember, let me say this. Usually when we think of the Hermetic text or the Hermetic saying or the axiom, as above, so below, we think about the cosmos as it is in the cosmos, the sun, the moon, and stars, that affects us down here. What I want to ask you is, what do you think about the idea of looking at it also, us starting to look at it in a way, and you touched on it a little bit, of not just as above, so below in terms of the cosmos affect us, but as above, so below in terms of us affecting what's going on under the ground? Because these symbols and the energy that they represented could have possibly produced those natural resources under the ground because of their integrity and their spirit and their soul. I remember talking to Rod Hayes one time, and he talked about gold being a byproduct of who occupies the land. So now if we're going to talk about as above, so below, let's really talk about as above, so below. Let's talk about the souls that produce these natural resources. Vicky, what you think about the idea and us examining as above, so below from that perspective, Billy?
You play too much is what I believe. That's all I believe. You just play too much.
Come on.
The reason why I say that you play too much, and I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with this. Brother Rich, you the one talking about the underground and all that. He would just, he played too much. Always got to have me running and bringing receipts and stuff. This is from May 20th, 2025. Can you all see this USA Today headline, what it says?
Scientists find millions, of golden eggs near underwater volcano. Wow.
Brother Rich, the eggs come from the Pacific white skate and were found in waters once thought too cold to support life. They can take up to 10 years to incubate. Scientists are speaking about a remarkable discovery, millions of living eggs near an underwater volcano off the west coast of Canada. It says about the whole thing being wild and so forth, right? You've been hearing when Trump got into office, I'll just use that as one example, just the headline. I won't read the whole thing.
Right.
You've been hearing when Trump got in office, remember, he wasn't just threatening the so-called foes, right? He was threatening tariff wars on our so-called allies, white allies. Remember, he threatened Canada. A lot of folks don't know there's a lot of resources in Canada, but he also threatened Greenland. And one of the reasons why he also is tripping with Russia, because there's many reasons why for Russia. Remember, I told you it was 20 years ago, Spirits started talking to me about Russia, right?
Yeah.
And there was a connection later that they brought Ukraine to me shortly after that, 20 years ago. One of the things that they showed me was some of the natural resources that are in Russia, the land mass that's in Russia. Now, because a lot of that was frozen, you see, as well as some of the water, what a lot of us don't know is while we sitting here talking about a lot of other stuff, we don't even know that one of the major things that the powers that shouldn't be are doing right now. Do you know that they're mapping the ocean? There are big maps, strategic planning going on, nations and countries and powerful forces and entities, which is why I refer to these golden eggs that's underground, that are secretly mapping and fighting for resources underground. So this notion of Trump fighting with Greenland and his fight with Russia and some other places is because we once had a base there. We pulled out. But because of global quote unquote warming, what's happening? These places, some of them that was once frozen, are loosening up. And with that, exploration, and we're finding there are other resources that are being released underground. Now, this is going to be deep right here. I don't know how deep we can go. When we were together last time, I showed you one of the images of one of our civil mothers, and the particular line she was under, they were able to call up the dead from underground.
Sheesh.
Now, there is a story in the text. Mm-hmm. I remember I told you, whenever I use the Bible as a book of magic. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. The book of as a book of magic, because it's so corrupted and they stole a lot of it from our mamas. The names are switched up, messed up, masculinized, and some more stuff. They added, took away, left out, and did a bunch of other stuff. Right, so the reason why it still has a level of effect, because some of it, the energy connected to it, has to do with some of our original ancient Black spiritual systems. You understand? So I want everybody to understand this ain't no Sunday school version of what Vicky talks about, you see. So it's a principle, and I'm using it in a very magical form. So let's be clear about that. Yes? Now watch this. There was a prophet, and I'm going to pull this up so that you all remember the Sunday school story. Yes? I'm pulling this up right now. And I want y'all to see something here. I'm going somewhere with this underground stuff. Yes? I'm bringing this up when I talked about one of the ancient sibyls that called up the dead. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, here it is. I think this is 2 Kings 13. I want you to see something here. Mm-hmm. And people, y'all may not be ready for this. You have to get ready with me. Watch this. I think it's 2 Kings 13. I'm going to pull it up right now.
While she finds that, shout out to everybody in the chat while Vicky's looking for that.
Yeah.
Once again, family, Vicky Dillard will be in Stone Mountain, Georgia next Saturday.
Yay!
For more information, I will post that in the description. I will be posting flyers all week, but she will be in Stone Mountain, Georgia this Saturday. All right. But go ahead, Vicky.
Shay, I found it. So 2 Kings 13. We're going to use the Sunday school story. I'm going to tell you how they keep this information from us. So the prophet Elisha, there's a prophet Elijah with a J, and then what we were told was his protege, Elisha, Elisha. Yes, Elisha, Elisha. So his protege had died, the one that we were told did double the miracles that Elisha did, because we're told that Elisha didn't see death, and there was a chariot, a fire that came and got him and took him up, right? That's the story. So his protege Elisha was sick and was getting ready to die. He passed, but before he passed, he did a miracle. After that miracle, this particular text, I'm just giving you the context of what you're hearing. After that, he passed. So it says here in Elisha, in 2 Kings 13, it says in verse 20, Elisha died and was buried. You're talking about underground, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Moabite raiders used to enter the country every spring. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man, suddenly they saw a band of raiders. So they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. Can you see that with your mind's eye? Mm-hmm. So they're rushing, but they see raiders coming in, the enemy coming in. So they weren't able to properly bury the man, so they just threw his body, you see, in Elisha's tomb, haphazardly, without properly burying it. That's the context of that. I'm going to read it again. Now, Moabite raiders used to enter the country every spring. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man, suddenly they saw a band of raiders. So they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came to life and stood up on his feet. Did y'all catch that?
Yeah.
When I did the research on that translation in Hebrew for Elisha's bones there in the tomb, guess what that word is?
What?
Naga. N-A-G-A.
Shit.
The Naga
Shit.
deals with the underworld. There's a serpent people. I'm not the major expert on all this, so I'm not going to go deep into that. I'm just trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Y'all gotta love this.
There are force people and energies that work underground.
Wow.
And this serpent people, which our ancient mothers are known as, because remember the word Vatican means what? Divining serpent.
Damn.
This is hid from us. So when they corrupted the text, what was the first thing that they told us from Genesis in the beginning? They made the serpent the devil, didn't they? From the beginning, they did that. And everywhere you see a woman, in most places, they have her looking crazy and nagging. Even the book of Proverbs talks about the nagging woman, doesn't it? The nagging woman or the nagging naga.
Yo, Vicky, man. Oh, Vicky, yo, you play too much. You play too much. You got a lot of shit.
There is a connection with the underworld. And this is also connected to, this might be too much for y'all, the waterways, which has to do with the mermaids and reptiles. And because they had this connection with the underworld, they also got favor on earth with them being able to control some of these waterways and tradeways. That's too much for y'all. That's too much. I think that's too much. I think that might be too much.
Nah.
So when you mess around and find out with the divine feminine, you're going to mess with your economy. You're going to mess with your ability to even sustain yourself on our planet. And what is a few thousand years for us anyway, when we're the most ancient human being on the planet? We'll wait for resurrection time, baby. We'll wait to retake the planet and the throne that was always ours. And if you had any sense, you would honor the divine feminine. Can I give you one more text, Brother Rich?
Please do. Go ahead. Please.
And dealing with the underworld. I'm bringing this up also because there's a phrase that we use for the word vault when we're talking about there's a dome and there's this thing over our head that we call a vault, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a vault on earth, right? That we talk about where we keep valuables. But I ask folks this often. What's another word for a coffin? I'm from the South. Some of my family used to work for the funeral homes and stuff. Another word for a coffin is a vault. I'm just simply using those different terms to say that we use that word vault for a reason that have to do with something over our heads, something on the earth, and even something under the earth. And every one of those have something to do with some type of resource, you see, that's involved with holding it and maintaining it. So I'm just simply saying that there are treasures also underground. So some of the ancestors, even from the Egyptian rites of dealing with the dead, and even this notion of black, where some folks don't like to use the word black because they keep talking about, well, when you say black, you calling us dead. No, fool. Esoterically, they're invoking the dead. They're invoking the ancestral realm, the blackness. That's why they were dealing a lot even with the dead. When you see what some would even call this type of obsession with the mummies, with the preparation of the dead and their connection there, they understood that there was a level of wealth there. See, they don't mind the sheep and the masses to be in the matrix. They want you there so that you're unable to tap into these resources and this knowledge and these spiritual vaults that was always yours. Quickly, I want to say this. Quickly. This prophet that we call Jeremiah, which this spiritual authority that came to me as a young girl, that used one of those texts to prophesy to me about what I would do related to the nations, notwithstanding its corruption, you see, in the first verse. This verse that we never talk about, this chapter in Jeremiah 44, and I got to take people to Sunday school because y'all be calling everything in your book like it's righteous when it's all, a lot of this stuff is witchcraft and black ancient spiritual stuff that they stole and keep hidden from you. Just like most folks didn't know that Naga in Hebrew, that word translates there as a Naga, but we're going to leave it alone for now. In Jeremiah 44, it says something interesting here. This group of people in Jeremiah 44, Brother Rich, was rebuked, and they were said to have been told to throw away their gods to throw away their idols, to throw away their ancient spiritual systems, and to embrace this foreign, we're going to call it modern Judaism, yes? That's what I'm going to call this here, even though that's not the technical term here, but you understand, to make things simple. Well, in this rebuke, because the people refused to accept this new God that they were trying to force on them, all the religions that they call pagan now, you see? That's the context of what I'm finna read to you, okay? Listen to what it says here, Brother Rich. Something very interesting. It says, verse 11 in Jeremiah 44, therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel says, I am determined to bring disaster on you and to destroy all of Judah. I will take away the remnant of Judah who were determined to go to Egypt to settle there. They will all perish in Egypt. They will fall by the sword. I will punish those who live in Egypt. It goes on to talk about these punishments. So it prophesies against his people because they won't accept this new religion, right? Verse 15 says this, then all the men who knew, listen, Brother Rich, then all the men who knew that their wives were burning incense to other gods, along with all the women who were present, a large assembly, it says here, it's in your Bible. And all the people living in Lower and Upper Egypt said to Jeremiah, are y'all listening? We will not listen to the message you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord. We will certainly do everything we said we would. We will burn incense to the Queen of Heaven. Watch this, Brother Rich, and I'm almost done. And will pour out drink offerings to her, just as we and our ancestors and our kings and our officials did in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. Guess what else they said, Brother Rich? At that time, we had plenty of food and were all well off and suffered no harm. Verse 18, in your Bible. But ever since we stopped burning incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have had nothing, and we have been perishing by sword and famine. They keep this context and they go no further in trying to confirm the veracity of that statement and who in the hell were these people and who is this Queen of Heaven. That was another name for Inanna. This is also connected to this notion of Isis. All under many different names are connected to your ancient Black Sibyl mothers. There was an acknowledgement, and notice in this text, they said your wives, yes, and the women, a large assembly. There's more, because this was something that the divine feminine and the feminines were known to engage in that brought peace and prosperity. You see, when they honored the Queen of Heaven. So you can make this about a gender war if you want to, or you can see this as the order of the universe. When you honor the divine feminine, there's peace in the land. There's less war. You understand? There's less of the things that are pernicious and perilous and devastating and tumultuous and terrible and horrible and diabolical under her leadership, in that sense of leadership. And she was never trying to make it about a male thing. The ancient Sibyls always work with other male priests, Brother Rich. When they deal with the matriarchy and the lineage of the ancient matriarchies, it was always males involved. They worked with the ancient Chaldean astronomers, astrologers, and others. They weren't hating on you because you was a man fool. Some of y'all got too big for your britches and wanted to overthrow your ancient mothers because of their power that they wielded in ways that they didn't. So it was never about that for them, you see? I'm bringing that up because I'm just trying to give you a point of reference that we still see vestiges of this even in scripture. That's why I keep referring to scripture, because a lot of the stuff that we call demonic, diabolical, and like acting like you don't know nothing about, it's right there in the book. And if we look at even Nat Turner, you've heard about Nat Turner, yes? Why is Vicky bringing up Nat Turner? In the United States, the man that's responsible for starting a revolution in a way that others didn't, because he's the one that started an insurrection that took out the white oppressor, yes? Even while they were asleep, was relentless. And he did it in the name of his God. And he used the Bible, Brother Rich. He was a preacher, yes? Nat Turner. But what they don't teach us in mass is that Nat Turner was affected by things that he saw in the sky and by eclipses, Brother Rich. He had at least 3 heavenly visions. Guess what else they don't teach us about him?
What?
I'm bringing this up for a reason, because I want us to understand the power of this and the ancient Black Vatican. What they don't tell us enough about is that there were drops of blood that fell in the field that he was in. Guess what the blood reflected, Brother Rich? The hieroglyphs.
Ooh.
That Turner, that's his story. They don't tell us that.
Ooh.
And he said that what he saw in the blood, he told both white and black. That's a part of his story. I got this information from a professor from Soul Folk. Look it up.
Damn.
Watch this. Why am I bringing it up to us? So why he was using the Bible in a way that we don't use it now. They're using the Bible now to tell you that your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ wants you to be weak, broke down, and give to a people that's deleting masses of folks and stealing resources that typically belong to the indigenous peoples of the land. And the pale-faced looking people have taken over regions that we don't even know we have direct connections to. Watch this. Do you know in that town near Virginia, one of the major towns where he started one of his revolts, while he's sitting there prophesying from this book called Jerusalem, talking about just Jerusalem land, do you know that was the exact city in the United States in Virginia that was one of his first areas of strike, was called Jerusalem in Virginia? He was getting messages from the heavens. He worked with the stars and the skies. He believed that when he got his big sign, when there was an eclipse, Brother Rich, he believed that it was actually a black man's hand that was over one of the celestial stars. That was one of his signs. And then when he was reading hieroglyphs, how come we don't know that Nat Turner was reading hieroglyphs? How come we don't know about that part? That in the name of his God told him to take out the devil. And when he was reading about Jerusalem in the book, he saw and in his own mind could have connected that Jerusalem to that Jerusalem that was Jerusalem down the road in Virginia. I'm bringing up an esoteric thought that when your sister from Mississippi that now lives in the Wild West is talking about the Vatican that you think is only situated in Italy, you got another thing coming. We can move the headquarters at will. And there's nobody greater to do it than the divine feminine, because the codes are in us, which is why every major religion, Brother Rich, every one of them either tells you that so-and-so is the last prophet, tell the truth, or there's the last prophecy, or this is the last book because you stole it from your ancient mothers. And the time of that word has only gone so far. You've made mischief with that word, and that word can only go so far, which is why they corrupted their words, and which is why you're trying to silence somebody like a Vicki Dillard. I don't even need the book, your Quran or your Bible, because lo, I come in the volume of a book. So you want to silence the mothership, the mother tongue, and the transmissions that come from me? Because it's by my mouth, baby, I can remake the world and overrule whatever little prophecies you've been making mischief with. Brother Rich, the fight that we see physically is because of the words, Brother Rich. And that's what we're seeing. I don't know if y'all saw, I just posted today. If you go to my Instagram page, Vicky X Dillard, I posted a clip of an interview that Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host, and Ted Cruz, current a congressman out of Texas. They had a big old fight. It was a 2-hour long. I was like, listen to this. I said, oh my God. I saw the clip from other places. It was easy for me to just to play this one clip. One of the reasons why Ted Cruz and your Congress people similar to him are pushing for this war in Iran, this madness that we see going on around the world, is because he's sitting there having a conversation with him, telling him, when I was in Sunday school, Ted Cruz, that's what he told Tucker, I was always told that if you bless them, you're going to be blessed. So one of the reasons I support this. And then when Tucker called him up and said, wait a minute, I'm a Christian. You saying that you're doing this because the Lord, your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I'm paraphrasing, your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ telling you, you got to bless them folks over there? He said, you telling me that the Bible, when it says to bless Israel, you talking about the one that's run by Netanyahu? That's what Tucker kept saying. Tucker said, I'm a Christian. He said, so you telling me the government that's in place, you telling me that book that was written that said to bless them, if you bless them, I'm going to bless you. If you curse them, I'm going to curse you. He said, you talking about that government? He said, yeah, that government. Then he started catching them up. Brother Rich, it wasn't if you blessed them. It was always about blessing your ancient Black mothers. Governments of old used to put tribute to the side from governments to make sure that they were given to the sibyls. And it was always believed and known that their societies, not only did they get high-level counsel from their ancient mothers, but they were blessed because they were given to them. This is a part of what's going on now. So we've allowed a people that they say that they're of the divine. We're giving resources to them, tithes and offerings, and you all are conflating him. And of course, that text is taken from Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, where there's a text that's talking about how Abraham said that when the Lord spoke to him, he told him to get out from his countrymen and go to a place I'm going to show you. And he said, everywhere you go, right? Y'all remember that text, Brother Rich, where he said that everybody that bless you, it's Genesis chapter 12. Those that bless you, I'm going to bless. Those that curse you, I'm going to curse. Talked about in him, all the families of the earth are blessed. Well, Brother Rich, there's a problem with Abraham, though. The problem with Abraham, and while all three major religions, because there are many other religions, of course, we know that many other spiritual systems that don't get any play, but the ones that's ruling the world and taking the world to hell in a handbasket, they all have a connection to Abraham, right? Am I right on that? They all claim Abraham, the three top major religions. Am I right? They all have a connection with him. Well, the problem, real quick, I'm going to give you one reference. I promise I'm going to be done with this part. The problem, real quick, Brother Rich, with Abraham, I'm looking for the exact quote here. And I talked about this. This is some of the things that I discussed in my schools, in my special webinars, rather. One of the problems here is one of the problems with Abraham is Abraham. Y'all ready for this? Brother Rich, hold your seat. Abraham was one of the first ones to rebel against the divine African mother. Did y'all hear what I said? I said Abraham was one of the first to rebel against the divine African mother. From which the word Horus, H-O-U-R-S, y'all, some of y'all know about that. Some of y'all that do more research than me on these topics. Y'all gonna be mad at me. From which the word Horus is etymologically rooted, is actually an ancient Egyptian word meaning to anoint. How many of y'all have heard about that palm oil and so forth? That's connected to that, and the Christos, C-H-R-I-S-O, meaning to grease. It was from this clan of Abraham, whose name, y'all ready for this, was originally Abram, or, y'all ready for this? Brahma. I'm going to leave the Vedic stuff alone. I'm going to leave the Indian stuff alone for now. But y'all hearing the hints in that. And others would become the original so-called, quote, Hebrew patriarchs that rebelled and broke away from their African mother goddess to found their new patriarchal religion. There was uproar over what they call Musa, right? M-U-S-A, which means who? Moses marrying Zipporah. I grew up hearing this story. They claimed that it was because she was a black woman. That's wrong, as the author notes here, because all the tribes at that time would have been black, right? The so-called uproar over Moses marrying Zipporah, a so-called Ethiopian woman, had absolutely nothing to do with her being black, because all the original clans, as I just said, were black. It had everything to do, Brother Rich, with her religion, meaning that she was from the old, established, royal, matriarchal, Mammy Isis, Amagasi Sibyls, of which the growing patriarchal clans were usurping and looting their kingdoms and exterminating those who would not submit to the new patriarchal order. As had been the custom since the beginning of time, it was through Zipporah, who carried the divine blood of Mommy, that Moses would claim his own divine lineage and power. I'm going to leave that alone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Y'all see. Man, you really took it there tonight, huh? You really, really took it there tonight.
It's deep. But the only reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm just throwing out seeds, because you know it's deeper than that. Yes, which is why my special webinar is Brother Rich be 4 hours and 6 hours.
Yeah.
Why am I bringing these different moving parts up? I'm trying to get us to see, Brother Rich, that we're more than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get us to see that our spiritual essence had everything to do with our prosperity, you see? And even the way the world went, and that we had connections to the seen and unseen world, the underworlds, you see? And that we can get back to that if we would but get in divine order, you see? Mm-hmm. And the powers that shouldn't be know what to do, because your government, do you know that they use seances? They have certain witches
Oh
that
yeah.
they made space for on military bases to do seances, your U.S. government, their testimonies of that.
Mm.
They're using black magic. And in the public, they talking about your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And you demonizing everything, but behind the scenes, they doing other stuff.
Mm.
And when they initiated the uh, latest attack, Netanyahu and them on Iran, they did it on Friday the 13th, the divine feminine day.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same reason as I've talked about many times before, where they want you scared to death of the number 13th elevator floor.
Mm-hmm.
They are so deep. They understand the vibration of the 13th so deep, because really there are really 13 cycles. It's like the divine feminine, our cycles are really supposed to be 13 cycles instead of 12. They changed the calendar. And it is my contention that the reason why they change the calendar, like the Gregorian calendars and others, is so they can mess up the rhythm of the earth. You see? Because just like there are 13 moon cycles, that's directly connected to divine feminine, because ours is connected to that. There's more, but I won't get into the esoteric parts of that. You got to be one of my divine feminines that attends my Isis mystery school to get that type of information, because that's sacred to the woman. But just on its face, that 13 is important. And it also controls the economy in ways that I'm not going to say yet. I'll just say this: the so-called 13 colonies. No, baby. This thing is so deep and is so directly related to the divine feminine. So it's about the order of things. It's not about a gender war. And so the more you keep rebuffing your own mother, you're just going to expedite your own demise. And the divine will have no mercy on you. You will meet the same end that your open enemy is meant to meet because of your rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Oh man, amazing, amazing transmission, amazing mothership transmission tonight. Straight from the mothership herself. You know, it's an amazing transit. Let me ask you this, Vicky, a couple of questions, because we're about to get out of here. I don't want to keep
you
long.
Yes, sir.
A couple of questions before we get out of here. What, and I'm curious to know this, what's the earliest age you can remember as a child just being alive? I asked you that some people say they could go back to as far as remember being in the womb. I remember when I was probably 5 or 4, the earliest. I'm just curious, what's the earliest you remember being down here in this realm?
2 years old.
About 2? Okay.
2 years old. So not the womb, but around 2 years old. And in fact, I was having a conversation. I won't say the exact story right now because it's kind of a deep, private family story, but I shared it with my mom, and she could not believe that I had that particular memory. So it was really verified, but 2 years old, which I was pretty surprised by. Yes, sir.
Any particular memory you remember from 2 years old that stands out? That's like, wow,
No,
now I know why I remember that. Anything in particular?
not so much now. I know I remember that. What I'm gonna say is this is kind of related to what you're saying, but in a little different way. I would say, in terms of how young I was, the consciousness in terms of being alive, I'm not sure. It's interesting that you would phrase it like that when you say, how young were you when you realized you were alive, meaning you were young, like you being alive. I would say for me, the thing that stood out most, which I said was 2 years old for me, that particular story, like I said, I won't share because it affects some other family stuff that I shared with my mom. So that's the only reason I'm not saying the details of that 2-year experience. And when I shared that experience with my mom, she couldn't believe that I remembered it. But I'll say this, the thing that I think is undeniable about me is there was a maturity and a knowing I had from a very, very, very young age. And that was clear because I was having dreams. I was having supernatural encounters even as a young age, including activism and including with the law, a criminal unjust case. But it was in an embodiment of an activist. And I saw her in the vision. I got up and I told my grandmother that I saw this particular lady, like her name was Miss Polly Hollyberg, behind bars in a dream. And my grandmother told me she walked with Dr. King and she was locked up as a consequence. So when I told her, I woke up and I said, I saw her, she was behind bars. I only knew that lady because she was in different churches screaming and hollering and shouting. That's how I knew it. I'm like, that lady. I'm like, when I was having a vision about this lady, a dream, that this lady I'd be seeing in different churches screaming and hollering and shouting, which was normal in the churches I was in. But that's all I knew her for, was hollering, screaming, and shouting. So why am I dreaming about her behind bars? My grandmother told me her history in civil rights, Dr. King and her being locked up. So that was pretty interesting. And then just me being in supernatural situations where I was, for example, pretty young, where I was in this the largest church at the time in the city I grew up in Mississippi, and they were having a regional church event, Brother Rich, for the youth. So there was a lot of people there, right, from different churches, and I was supposed to read a poem. And this may sound off, but it's interconnected. I was supposed to read a poem for the event. And while I was sitting there, and the event was supposed to start probably about 15 minutes, right? So you can imagine the church is packed, people coming from different cities. And it's time for the youth to do their thing to end out the conference. So I'm sitting there, and of course, my family's there and all that to see me do my thing as a part of the program. So a few minutes before the event, Brother Rich, I heard a voice that said to me, "What if you MC this whole thing?" Mm. Well, the lady whose name I think, if I asked my mom, who's my assistant, one of my assistants, I think her name was Miss Hearns. A few minutes before the event, she came up to me and said that she wanted me to MC the whole program. A few minutes before the event, Brother Rich. And when I got there, something prophetic happened to where the bishop got up, the pastor got up and said some stuff based on something that I said, because I rebuked the whole church. I rebuked the whole church, and the whole church went crazy. But my mother was tripping because I had told her that I heard a voice that said to me, "What if you MC this whole thing?" And then a few minutes later, the lady came up to me and asked me to MC. They didn't say you would. They said, "What if you MC this whole thing?" And a few minutes later, they did. So after it was over, my mother was telling me what all the adults said to her. It was this counselor that came to me as a young girl that told me what I would be doing prophetically as a prophet to the nations. Mm. They were testing me. That was them, you understand? But they were putting me in an environment so that I would activate my gift, you see? And these gifts always got me in trouble, of course, all the time. But it's just about me hearing well. It's not about me knowing well. I don't know nothing. I brag about I know stuff I don't know. It's about hearing well. Yes. Yeah. And that's important, because that's the beauty of that. So those are the kind of things I remember as a young person, a young child or whatever, that didn't make any sense that I would like be on something like that and could be able to accurately say stuff like that. And I'm good because I do things, I speak things when they give me something. I don't just be out there, just be talking about, tell me this, say that, do that, and all that. They tell me something for a need to know basis for a certain reason. I don't know if y'all seen the movie Salt. Have y'all seen that movie Salt where Angela Jolie is in there, Brother Rich?
No, I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, you got to see it. She plays a spy, like a Russian spy. And as a young child, her and some others, they're trained as young children to activate. They like sleeper spies. So they were for what they call, I think it was a doomsday, a black day, or dark day, is a name like that, to where at a certain time, many, many, many years later, they would be activated to basically infiltrate the United States at a certain time. That's what the movie is about.
Right.
But she ends up turning as a spy. Nobody knows the whole time that she's working for the CIA, that she was really trained as a young girl, you understand, from Russia. And that at this time that and it wasn't just her, it was others, that it integrated in society. And when she got word at a certain time, she would know that she's supposed to activate and do this thing related to bringing in this new takeover. Of course, I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying there's a spiritual takeover, and I'm activated at a certain time. I feel like that at this particular time. So I don't move because I just want to say something or do something. I do it because I'm ordered to do it. And so when I say it, it hits. So if I'm talking about Eritrea from a few years, then Eritrea is in the news. If I'm talking about South Africa 2 or 3 years later, there's an issue with that. You see, that don't even make sense what I'm doing. I'm talking about Russia 20 years ago, and now we're talking about Russia and Ukraine. That's how this goes. Yeah. That's how I know. This is what I say. It's going to be what I say. Definitely. It is going to happen like I say it's going to happen.
Well, before we get out of here, I want to ask you, Vicky, how do you get lost in your art? How do you fully connect to what it is that you're doing? Let's say you're making music. How do you fully engage yourself in the process of making music, or you're giving a lecture? How do you approach it from a channeler's perspective and just let the spirit flow through you and not get caught up in intellectual routine or mundane routine? How do you fully become immersed in spirit in your art, Vicky?
Now, before I answer that, because you play too much, why did you ask me that?
Um, you well, you know, you ever seen Michael Jordan play basketball? When you see the flow, when you see
Mm-hmm.
somebody in the flow state, you could recognize it, and you occupy that flow space a lot. You can see it. You can see it in Beyonce. Let me use an entertainer. You
Mm-hmm.
can see her
Mm-hmm.
occupy that space where something just takes over her. And you see that in some of the greats, some of the GOATs, the greatest of all
Mm-hmm.
times. And I'm able to tap into that space, and I know how it feels, and I see that in you also. You
Mm-hmm.
can recognize if you got it in you, you can recognize it in somebody else.
Indeed.
So I see
Indeed.
it in you. So I'm just curious about how do you go about, if there's even a method or if it just happens automatically, because it's a
I love.
beautiful thing to see somebody in that space. It's beautiful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand. I wanted you to say that for a reason and not just me only, because it's always a spirit behind why we ask something.
Mm,
And that's why you're really so profound, frankly, in what you do, and why the divine has allowed you to do a lot of the things that you do. Um, there is a spiritual axiom that says if you sow to the spirit, you will reap of the spirit.
mhm,
And so it is very simple, but it's not the process itself. It's a lot, but it's still a simple metric. And that's simply give yourself to it
mhm.
over and over and
Woo.
over and over again. You know, when a horse races, right?
Yeah.
They say they put what on them? Blinders on the side of the horse. Yes?
Yeah.
And why do they do that? They want them to have a narrow parochial focus so that they're not distracted, right? And
Mhm.
focus. But for me, I don't, this may sound crazy. I put them on myself.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to encourage me to do that. And one of the reasons I was so upset with my spiritual team, especially when I was locked up in the belly of the beast, because I had written down details that they told me before that took place, a few years that took place. Oh, they left out the you gonna be found guilty part. I was told names, details. What the hell is this? So, and when I was giving that testimony, somebody, in fact, I think it was 19 Keys, he said, well, why was you mad at them? I said, why was I mad? Because they left it out. Then I was
Mm,
gonna be because the part guilty, that
mm,
part was left out. That was important right there.
mm.
So I was upset. I was angry. Brother Rich, watch this. And when I was locked up, Brother Rich, when they were, after I was stripped, all this kind of stuff, I was put in solitary confinement the first night behind the wall because of some other stuff that the rest of the ladies that I went in there with, they didn't put them in there, but I had to do that overnight, bunch of stuff. Was not even there a day in where I would spend the next few years of my life. And while I was being transported there, holding would be my sheets and clothes in my hands, walking across the street with the CO and the prisoner that they had escort me over there. A lady was prophesying and said about, look at her, there's some spiritual thing on her. I raised the dead when I was in the prison. Documented. This is stuff was told, known from a lady that was in prison for almost 20 years. Unnatural things took place, supernatural stuff for others. Watch this. And the people were putting a demand on my energy. And this was before I had even uttered and said a word. Later, of course, they understood some other stuff because stuff I ended up doing with the chapel and some other stuff. But Brother Rich, I did it reluctantly. I did it in anger and get me out of here, spirit. Do you understand?
Mhm, mhm,
It was not about these people are beneath me, this situation, the hell I'm in here for.
mhm.
Get me out of here. It was a rebellion. It was an energy of madness that was on me. And I was doing miracles like I was sneezing.
Mm.
And the people put a demand on me. They begged me. And how did some of them know it and see it, Brother Rich, before I even said anything? Before that time, I had given myself to spirit. I baptized myself. I disciplined myself. And I was doing it so much. That thing you embody, it becomes you. So much so you can't even turn it off, Brother Rich. And it affects the unseen realms in such a way that a council, a group, an energy, a force works with you. And I was compelled and put in situations and circumstances that was beyond me, but that I had sold this life. You understand? To where even when I wanted to go against it, I had built this thing up in a way on earth and in a contract that I made before my mother had her contractions. And I've said this before, that when your mother bleeds in bringing you to the earth, that's in blood, that's a sign that your contract is in force. Because you've breached that veil into this realm from an agreement that you made in another dimension. That's what happened for me. That's what happened for some of us. And some of us are so in tune with that because we give ourselves to this thing that we can't see. You can't sow to the spirit, as I started by saying this question when you asked me this. You can't sow into something and not reap of it. You can't continue to give into something and then it not eventually take a life of its own. That's how you begin to move into a flow. And so why I don't get caught up in whether or not I have a bunch of letters in front of my name or behind it, why I maintain the essence and the integrity of who I am. Remember, I told you the authorities came to me, these spiritual civil authorities that were covert at the time. They didn't come to me by that name. When the lady came and prophesied to me as a young girl at my kitchen table in the presence of my mother and grandmother, that text from Jeremiah that said I would speak to the nations and prophesy. A part of that was a warning, Brother Rich. A part of that warning was that I'm not supposed to back up and I'm not supposed to be fearful before them or they would do that to me. There was always this innate thing in me that I knew I was here for something bigger and greater than myself. And inside of me, my higher self, the altar that you started with, that you make to yourself, I knew I had something to do with that. I knew I had something to do, that I was going to constrain myself. And that I had set something in place with this contract that even if I wanted to rebel against it or retract from it, there was an agreement that I made in eternity that I would do it anyway. I would be compelled to do it, even if I didn't want to at certain points of this journey. So a part of that flow state, some of us made that agreement that we would be integral and that we would stay on this particular path. But in a simplistic way, in a 3D way, in a way that's bound by earth in this particular terrain, you can't sow to the spirit for 3 hours in meditation. You can't do overnight prayers like I was doing for 6 hours at a time, 9 hours at a time. You can't give yourself to that thing so deeply in spirit that it doesn't take a life of its own. So when you do it like that, there's a spiritual force. There's a whole other world that you become. You vibrate differently, you move differently, and it changes the very essence of who you are. That's how you're able to move into that flow state. And you do what mere mortals can't and won't. But you first make the decision to be chosen, and you give yourself to that. Like that horse, you put those blinders on so that the horse doesn't get distracted. When you do that to yourself, when you self-impose, some will call it discipline. I call it devotion. For the divine feminine, we got to be devoted, even though there's similarities to it. But there's a wanting and a longing and a want to, because it's spiritually based. So it's just not something physical I do, which is discipline. It's also a spiritual connection that I have. When you do that, it's going to put you in a flow state. When you give yourself over to the thing, when you decide, I'm going to give it every bit of me. I'm going to give it my money. I'm going to give it my time. I'm going to give it my early mornings.
Yeah, y'all hear this?
All this, it's going to do something else. You see? And I'll stop there.
Nah, yo, Wilson.
Why are you laughing?
Because you got that fire. You got that spirit. You don't see that in the average human. Like your family, we gotta appreciate. I appreciate. I know y'all do too. When you see God in the form of a person, like alive and well, and just electrified. Like I don't even know how to articulate it, but y'all know what I'm talking about. But I'm glad you said it like that. And I'll just say something before we close out. In terms of, pardon me, y'all. In terms of how I approach it, I look at my purpose. I give my purpose in life the same. You talked about devotion. I give it the same amount of love that I give my children.
Come on.
Giving yourself up to it the same way. And I'm a full-time, like, amazing dad to my children. Same way I am with my purpose. I give it.
Beautiful.
I wake up early to it. I sleep night to it. I think about it in my dreams.
Ooh.
I daydream about it. I mean,
Ooh.
with my children. So it's a beautiful. It's beautiful to converse with somebody who's tapped into their purpose. And I want us to inspire other people out there in the chat, in the room. We got 2,000 people tapped in right now.
Shout out to the audience, everybody. Yeah. I didn't even get a chance to speak to them, but greetings, everyone. Much love to everybody here.
We just been, it's been one of them shows where we just been flowing, so I just kept letting it flow.
Yeah, thank you.
You're gonna be in Georgia next week, so we're gonna see Vicky next week. I know a lot of you in the chat will join us in Georgia. We will be in Stone Mountain. Vicky's gonna change the energy of Stone Mountain forever.
The
top of that mountain, I don't think Stone Mountain is going to be the same.
Powerful.
It's funny. Rob Hayes said in ancient times it used to be a volcano. Vicky might activate that motherfucker again.
Powerful, brother Rich. I didn't know that.
Activate it again.
I didn't know that.
She might activate that thing again. Because
powerful.
Man, listen, before we get out of here, Vicky, give the people your contact info. You got so much going on with your schools and your classes and all of that. I know they're going to want to sign up and join. Let them know what you got going on, Vicky.
Thank you so much for this. Brother Rich. Ain't he Brother Rich, y'all? And Brother Radio, you go by another name. I know you asked me something, but tell me about that, please. Can you?
Well,
can you? If you
can't,
of
course. Yeah, I've talked about it before. I'm concentrating. Radiohead Rich represents me being an antenna for my higher self. God is broadcasting through me. So when you see the works I do, it's God in action. I'm working on being more receptive and using less effort. With my ego mind, I thought it was all about action, doing the work. And of course you got to do the work, but I think receptivity comes first. So because you could put in a lot of work and get very little results. But if you're receptive to that frequency, that and become the revelation and the precipitation of your desires, then oh Lord, that thing gonna come raining down. You talking about making it rain? You talking about making it rain, Vicky? Oh, you gonna make it rain? You gonna make it rain? So yeah, I'm concentrating on understanding the dynamics of this technology that we call the avatar, the human body, and understanding it's the most sophisticated antenna in the universe, and I intended to use it like that for the rest of my time down here and really just tap in. And when I come up with these questions or when I make music or whatever I do, I want God, my higher self, to broadcast straight through me, so it looks like something absolutely amazing. So yeah, gotta flow with that. Radiohead Rich, Vicky. Radiohead Rich.
I'm holding back tears, and I feel the anointing very strong when you said that. Emotionally, there's something there, and I'm gonna leave it right there. And the Spirit gives me something later to say about that, but that had to be said for me in that moment. So thank you for sharing that.
Indeed.
I've been using that name, and I said, I wonder what's up with that.
I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you asked that, Vicky. I'm glad.
I needed you to declare that. It did, like me. I feel that in me, on me. And so I know why now. So I'm going to leave it there. My information, you can find at VickyPlanet.com. That's my website. As my dear brother said here, I do have a lot going on. I have my summer magazine, which I do, Brother Rich. I did a few of those, but this one is called Venus. It's about luxury for the everyday woman, because I don't believe luxury is something that's supposed to be just for millionaires and billionaires.
Indeed.
So, I just recently did some stuff on that, so that's going to be coming out soon. My first mini book. I've been working on my original book, The Dark Goddess Invasion, for years and years. You know, my publisher, she said, "Girl, you too deep." She said, "We got to introduce to the world with something simple." She said, "So look, Brother Rich, we end up doing a whole other book, a mini book. That's coming out this year. The pre-launch is going to be done this summer, so stay tuned for that. And then my special courses, as you just mentioned, I'm doing an intensive, more high-end course, for a more private course for my masculines out there, my divine masculines. Brothers, I'm going to talk to you about the spiritual stuff. I know there's a lot of talk, and a lot of folks are overwhelmed with this notion of providing and protecting. And I feel like a lot of times people make excuses for not doing that because you feel like that you're not going to be able to make enough money. And so sometimes I feel like that they connect with voices that they shouldn't, because they don't know how to tap into that frequency of providing and protection. So instead, a lot of y'all out here just talking crazy about a woman, which back in the day where I grew up, no man would ever talk about a woman like that, because it was a sign that you didn't know how to get one. But I know things have changed now. So I wanted you to know you don't have to know it all, brothers. Your sister is happy to help you. You don't have to have all the answers. All you have to do is have a rich attitude. If you're open to learning about how, if you feel frustrated in terms of provision, providing and protecting, this is going to be for you, baby. And I can assure you, by the time you're done, you're going to have the necessary ancient things that you need to know about how to tap in so that you're moving into a flow of protection and resources for your household. Your life will never be the same. That's coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. And then my Isis Goddess Mystery School 2. That's a 90-day course that I do for my sisters. It's just for women. But all of that's coming up before the year's out. The first thing that you can do if you want to connect with me, the best way is just become a member of the Vicky Dillard Mystery School. It's only $50-some a month. Every month you get a whole lecture. On a regular basis, you get divine rituals. And Brother Rich, I've been doing a back-to-back series for the past few months about abundance out of thin air. I have students that have gotten testimonies where they got $10,000 raises. I've got people that were in previous relationships, marriages, where all of a sudden there's some legal stuff coming up where they might be entitled to some resources from a previous relationship. I've got folks that's coming up with winning lottery tickets. I got other folks that's got 1,000 months of bonuses on. I mean, it's some of the most ridiculous testimonies I've ever heard. I am no financial guru, Brother Rich. I don't even believe in that. But the spirits didn't ask me if I believed in it. They said, we giving you the secrets and you're supposed to tell it, prophet. So tell it. But miracles have happened. But that's not the only magic we're doing with that. We're also going to be affecting the global economy. All that happens every single month in the Vicky Dillard Mystery School for a low cost. So if you want to connect with me now and then learn about all these other things, just go to vickyplanet.com and join today. I can assure you your life will never be the same.
Indeed. As we know now, Vicky, from what we said earlier, there's no such thing as empty space. So thin air ain't thin air. It's filled. It's filled.
I'm not doing this with you. Stop. Stop. We're not doing this.
So it ain't thin air. You using that mama energy. You using that mama energy, Vicky. For mama to matter. For mama to matter. Because mama matters.
Brother Rich. Brother Rich, we finna go. We getting out of here. Yo, material connected to mother. Ma, what word do you see at the last part of material?
L. Oh no, all.
No, if you look at it, material. What is that second part? And I can't see the chat, but I wonder if somebody in the chat can tell me. If we take out the MAT. What does that second part of the word material remind you of? An alternative rendering and spelling. What does that word, that second part remind you of if you take out the MAT?
What, aerial?
What?
Aerial?
What?
Aerial.
I wonder if we're going to be dealing with the laws of aerodynamics in this mug.
Wow.
To make matter. Wow. It's deep, it's good, and the people get miracles. Baby, spirit is sneaking and snitching. You hear me? And it's so good, Brother Rich. It's so good. It's so good. Remember, we talked about the air plant last time I was here, and I told you the spirit gave me that revelation, the air plant. And I went to that botanica, and I'm like, what is this plant sitting here with no water and no soil? The man gave me revelation. I said, oh no, spirit was telling me right then. That was just in addition to what I was already teaching my students. We pulling abundance and manifest out of thin. That's exactly what we doing. And Brother Rich is playing with this. But it ain't really not, it ain't no empty space. Yeah, we finna leave that alone, Brother Rich. It's gonna be another 2 hours. Stop.
Listen, family, next Saturday, Stone Mountain. Vicky will be there. Make sure this is gonna be, we're gonna be in nature. We're going to be in Mother Nature. We're going to be in Mother Nature. It's going to be an experience you can never forget. Make sure you tap in. I will have information in the description about that. With that being said, Vicky Dillard, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. And I look forward. My daughter just entered the room. Shout out to my daughter. Vicky, you never see my daughter. Let me show you my daughter real quick. Let me show you my daughter. My daughter just came in the room. Let me show you my little mommy. Let me show you.
Oh my God! Oh my! Oh my goodness!
My son wants to come.
Oh my goodness! Brother Rich, what better way to end the show?
What a way to end the show!
Come on now!
What a way to end the show, family. Next Saturday, Stone Mountain, Vicky Dillard, Brother Rich, and a host of other gods and goddesses. With that being said, Vicky Dillard, thank you so much, Queen.
Thank you.
I'm gonna talk to you this week.
Brother Rich, they gotta be there. They gotta be there.
No, they gotta be there.
If you sow to the spirit, what did we say? You'll what? Reap of the spirit. Y'all, everything you see came from everything you can't see. Engage in this spiritual ritual. A spiritual ritual is a blueprint. A spiritual ritual is nothing but what? A spiritual recipe for making something. It's a recipe. So don't miss this high level ceremony. Don't miss it.
Go. Vicky, I'm going to see you next Saturday.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Peace, Vicky. Family, I will see y'all on Monday, all right? Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Peace, family.